Miracles of Jesus, Part 5. Two blind men followed Jesus as he left and went into the house where he'd stayed a while. "Have mercy on us, son of David," screamed the blind men, and he asked, "Do you pursue me in the faith that I can make you see?" "Yes, Lord," they said, "we do." He touched their eyes and said, "Due to your faith, so will it be." Their eyes were opened, and they could now see. He told them to tell this to nobody. Instead, they spread his stardom far and wide. After they left, men brought a man to Jesus, a man demon-possessed who could not speak. Part 6. Once Jesus cast a demon out, the man began to speak, which thrilled the crowds, who blurted out, "Nothing like this has ever occurred in Israel." But jealous Pharisees denounced the Lord as being no more than a Satan follower. Then Jesus hurried into Jerusalem, where water stirred a pool that healed the sick of their diseases. And Jesus met an invalid and asked him, "Do you want to become well?" No one had put the man into the pool that healed the sick whenever water was disturbed. Jesus told him, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk." At once the man was healed, which stunned the Pharisees, who wanted men to kneel to legalistic ways, not God's superb atoning grace, favor unmerited. Next, Jesus went off to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, a giant crowd following him due to his miracles, and he asked them, "Where can we buy bread so that this crowd may eat?" Andrew, beside the Lord, said that a boy had come around with 5 loaves and 2 fish, but who'd be full when these were split among the crowd? The Lord had people sit down on the grass, then took the loaves, gave thanks, and handed out the bread, then did the same with the 2 fish, and each person had as much as he wanted, for the food was plentiful. When Jesus looked and saw that all were satisfied, he said to his disciples, "Gather broken pieces left over so that nothing's wasted." So they gathered up the pieces, and they filled 12 baskets, and the people saw this sign and said, "This is the prophet who shall come into the world." Then Jesus had to go across to Gennesaret, where God willed he heal the sick, and people brought them by. They begged to touch his cloak, its edge, and none was turned away, and all who touched the edge of it were healed. A woman Canaanite from that vicinity came up and cried, "Lord, son of David, mercy, for a demon torments my girl, who suffers like a wretch." But Jesus said that he was sent as light to the lost sheep of Israel, their guide. "It's wrong to take the children's bread and freely toss it to the dogs," he said. "Yes, it is, Lord," she said, "but even dogs eat crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then the Lord replied, "Woman, you have great faith, and your request is granted." And her daughter at that moment was healed. Then Jesus left Tyre's region, walked to the Sea of Galilee through Sidon, and as his miracles had so impressed them, they brought him a deaf mute and implored Jesus to lay his hand on him. So he took him aside, away from crowds, and placed his fingers in his ears and spat, and touched his tongue, and looked heavenward. The Lord sighed and uttered, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." And his ears opened with no trace of blockage, and his tongue was freed, so much so he spoke plainly. Jesus said, "Don't speak about this." But the more he said, "Don't talk about this," they all the more proclaimed it, and they were staggered, saying, "He has done all things well, even making deaf men hear and the mute speak." Then Jesus left and walked along the Sea of Galilee to sit upon a mountain that he'd climb for one-on-one encounters with the lame, the blind, the mute, the crippled, and a host of others. And Jesus healed them all, which stunned the crowds who praised the God of Israel. He asked for his disciples and told them, "The time is right to feed these people, all our brothers who've been with me 3 days. I can't allow them to leave hungry when they might collapse along the way." And his disciples said, "Where could we get some bread so far from towns, enough to feed this crowd?" "How many loaves do you have?" Jesus asked them. "7," they replied, "and a few small fish." So he led by telling everybody to sit on ground. He took the 7 loaves and fish and broke them after he had given thanks and gave disciples pieces which they gave the people, who ate and were all satisfied. Disciples collected 7 basketfuls of all the extra broken pieces, and the crowd count was 4,000 men who'd sat and eaten there, plus the women and the children by the men. And after Jesus sent the throng away, he took the boat and traveled down to the vicinity of Magadan. Then they came to Bethsaida, where some pleaded with him to heal a blind man. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside town, spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on them, then asked, "Do you see anything?" Looking up, he said, "I see men. They look like walking trees." Jesus touched the man's eyes again. His eyes were opened and his sight came back, and he saw things with clarity. As Jesus went, he saw a man born blind. "While in the world, I'm the world's light," he said. Then he spit upon the ground, and with saliva he made some mud with his dexterity and put it on the man's eyes. He said kindly, "Go wash in the Siloam pool," which means sent. So the man washed and came home seeing, though his neighbors weren't sure he was the same man. And Pharisees, the jealous Jewish leaders, insulted and attacked the man when he twice told how the man Jesus had restored his sight. But they claimed Jesus' helping hand was sinful, while the healed man disagreed and told them, "I was blind, and now I see."